Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. It's been a while since I did a garage review, and I've been promising a review of this thing for a long time, so finally, time to put my money where my mouth is. Here it is, the garage review of the AMX AC Mle.1946. The name's a bit of a mouthful, and all it actually means is the AMX manufactured tank destroyer built in 1946. So, not quite as poetic a name as you would have expected from the French, but it is what it is. I'm just going to call it the 46. Now, it's a good machine. But anything is going to look good if it follows the ARL V39 at tier 6. And this thing was just such a turd of a machine. It was so awfully bad. What let it down was the fact that it had the most narrow gun traverse imaginable, and it had a selection of guns that either couldn't penetrate anything, or if they could penetrate anything, had an aiming time measured in ice ages. These two 90mm guns, that one that did actually have good penetration but took 3 seconds to aim, this one which had god-awful penetration but a very, very fast aiming time and couldn't hit anything anyway with .38 accuracy. Or the 105mm, which is probably the best gun to use on the tank. Aiming time was slowish, 2.3 seconds, but not too bad. The penetration was better than the first 90mm, not as good as the second 90mm. Did more damage, .39 accuracy, just bad. And that's what sank. Well, that's one of the things that sank the V39. It was crap in just about every department. And so anything coming after this thing is going to look good. Well, the good news for the 46 here at tier 7 is that not only is it not the ARL V39, it's a decent machine in its own right. And it pretty much starts to set the stage for all the other French tank destroyers that come after it. French tank destroyer drivers have had to put up with a lot to get up to tier 7. The tier 5 S35 isn't bad. It in the right circumstances is actually quite good. But most of the other French tank destroyers were either just awful or nothing to get excited about. Once you get up to tier 7, it's fun times ahead. Starting with this thing. Now, what's so good about it? Well, 820 hit points, which is on the low end for a tier 7 tank destroyer. It's not particularly low, but most of the other nations have more health than this thing. But, we're French, we're used to that. It weighs 50 tons, and it has an 850 horsepower engine, so the power-to-weight ratio is actually pretty damn good in this thing. And it can do up to 50 kilometers per hour, and it doesn't really struggle too much to reach that speed. So, again, typically French. It's actually quite fast and nimble. Well, I say nimble, the traverse speed isn't great. It's not terrible, but it's not great either, 26 degrees per second. But then we get to the first distinctly un-French thing about it. It's actually very, very well armoured. The side and rear armour is garbage, as you'd expect. It's a tank destroyer, 40mm sides and rear. Anything is going to be able to penetrate your sides and rear, but the frontal armour is 120mm thick. What the hell's going on? That's really good. And look at the sloping on it. And it's actually angled on the sides as well. Not only that, the lower glacis is a tiny target. If you get hit there, it's going to be by accident rather than judgment. And it's also, if you can properly see, look at the slope of the lower glacis. So it's practically the only real weak spots on this thing from the front are that machine gun turret or tuber and this really, really just crude-looking rangefinder. And those are reasonably large and easy to penetrate weak spots, but this thing is quite rounded. You pretty much have to smack it head on in order for the shot not to bounce off. But if you can land hits on these things, yeah, you're going to penetrate this thing from the front. But the majority of the front of this thing is 120mm thick, sloped and angled, and it's got a good gun mantle. So distinctly un-French armour, and is the first thing that, certainly the first couple of games I've played in this, I couldn't believe the shots this thing was bouncing from the front. It comes as a revelation after driving the V39. Now, the view range isn't fantastic, but it's not bad either, 350 metres. And your standard 750 metre signal range. Gun traverse speed is not fantastic, but it's not terrible. The one drawback that this thing has is And this is a problem that you're going to have to get used to on French tank destroyers. Not so much on the S-35 at Tier 5, which had very, very good gun traverse. But starting with the V39, it's that narrow gun traverse and crappy gun selection that killed the French tank destroyer line. Until you get to this thing, they all still have that crappy sort of very, very narrow gun traverse. But from this point on, they get guns with fast aiming times that also have decent penetration, accuracy and damage. There are only 3 guns to choose from on this thing. The stock gun is pretty bloody awful. 90mm DCA-30 and 135mm of penetration on a Tier 7 with .38 accuracy. Forget it. 240 damage, no. Who cares with that rate of fire? It doesn't matter how often you're shooting the shells if they're just going to bounce or miss. So yeah, even the fact that it has a lightning fast aiming time is just not enough to compensate for it. Now, if you had any sense whatsoever, you will have researched that thing on the V39, even if it's not the best gun to use on the V39. And this is painful. This is one of the things that makes the V39 grind so bad. It's just a horrible tank to drive, no matter what gun you have on it. But you really do need to unlock this thing, and it's 18,500 XP, before you go up to the 46, because trying to use that same shit selection of guns on the 46 is going to kill any interest you have in playing the game at all. It's that bad. You need this gun, the 90mm DCA-45. Now, while that gun was a piece of shit on the ARL V39, because the V39 had such narrow such narrow gun traverse, and that thing on the V39 had a 2.9, nearly 3-second aiming time, which meant that when you were trying to aim at a target, by the time the gun had aimed, the target had moved out of your gun arc, and then you had to move the hull, and then you had to go through the full 3-second aiming time again. It was just horrible, absolutely bloody horrible. Well, that same gun on this thing only has a 2.3-second aiming time, and is .34 accuracy, with 212mm of penetration, 8.7 rounds per minute, and 240 damage. Now, the damage is a little low, but the rate of fire is good, the accuracy is very good, and the aiming time isn't bad at all. Now, this is not the top gun on the 46. The top gun on the 46 is this one, the 100mm SA-47. And on paper, it looks like the best gun to be using. And I'm not going to say it isn't. It just depends on how you play this thing. It's got a slower rate of fire. In fact, let's compare them directly. There we go. It's got a significantly slower rate of fire, 6 versus 8.7. The penetration is not that much better, 232 versus 212. 212 is fine at Tier 7. It does do more damage, 60 more damage, 300 versus 240. They've got exactly the same accuracy, but this is what kills it for me. It's this 2.9-second aiming time again. And it's like driving the V39 all over again with that 100mm gun on this 46. And that's why, and I've played with both of them, and it's just tank destroyers that have very narrow gun traverse and very long aiming times are a nightmare. When you're playing one of these French machines, you really want a gun with a faster aiming time. And 2.3 seconds is just about acceptable. And that, for me, is the gun that really works best on this tank. You could, in fact, I'm very, very short of cash, so I'm not spending 127,000 credits just to show you what the 100mm gun looks like. If you want to know what it looks like, there you go. There it is on the 48. And it's kind of the same deal on the 48, which will get its own review separately when I've unlocked the 120mm gun on this thing. But I'm finding so far that the 100mm gun, which is the intermediate gun on the 48, is a really, really good gun to use on the 48, because that 2.9-second aiming time, which you have with the 100mm gun on the 46, when you get to the 48, it's a 2.3-second aiming time. And that's the way this progression seems to work with the French tank destroyers. So the AMX AC Mle.1946, I really like this machine. It's definitely a breath of fresh air after driving the absolute turd that is the V39. But it's a decent machine in its own right. It's fast, it's got a good gun, it's very well armoured from the front, although it does have weak spots. There's really nothing to dislike about this machine. Now, I have fitted a gun rammer, because if you can fit a gun rammer, you always want to fit a gun rammer, just for that extra 10% loading time. I've fitted vents. Basically, I'm fitting equipment that's going to help me with the aiming time. Because 2.3 isn't terrible, but it's not great either. And again, this thing, like all the French tank destroyers from tier 6 up, does have narrow gun traverse, so minimising the chance that your target is going to escape out of your arc of fire before you're fully aimed is key when you're driving these things. If I could, if I had the money for it, but I don't, I would also fit an enhanced gun lane drive, just to drive that aiming time down even further. You could get the aiming time down to 2 seconds with vents and a gun lane drive. I haven't quite got there yet. That would be my recommendation of equipment for it. Crew skills, well, it's a tank destroyer. So camouflage, 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 camouflage. As your first crew skill, I would always recommend, especially on at least on a tank destroyer that isn't a massive monster that can't possibly hide in anything like a Jagdtiger or a Ferdinand. Tank destroyers like this, go for camo, at least until your first crew skill reaches 100%, and then you're probably going to want to do what most people do, which is swap the commander skill for something like Sixth Sense, and then work on separate skills for the others. But camo definitely is always a good idea on most tank destroyers. So let's have a look and see how this thing plays. So this was actually the very first game I played in my 46. It's a patch 7.5 replay, hence the dodgy target markers. For some reason, in some of my patch 7.5 replays, I just can't get the target markers to work properly, so it's difficult to tell what I'm actually shooting at or how much damage I'm doing to them, because I can't get the health bars up. But first game in the 46, I already had the 90mm gun unlocked because I did the hard work on the V39 and unlocked it on that, thinking it was going to be a good gun on that. It isn't. It is a good gun on the 46, however. So my very, very first game, we're here on Lakeville, and for some bizarre reason, the matchmaker in my very first game stuck me in a tier 8 match. It's difficult to complain too much. I mean, this thing can handle itself in a tier 8 match, but the matchmaker normally... There we go, AMX 1375 over there, we're going to give him the good news. Yeah, the matchmaker normally goes easy on you in your first 10 games, it's supposed to anyway, whenever you unlock a new machine. I mean, around about 40% of your first 10 matches, it normally puts you in a tier 7 game if you're driving a brand new tier 7 machine. That just didn't really happen on this thing. Not complaining, just, making an observation. Now, we don't have a lot in the valley. We haven't spotted anything of theirs in the valley, and there's a whole buttload of enemy tanks driving into the town. But they're all jammed together, and the guys that have run into them are falling back, and the guys in the town did a pretty damn good job, actually, all things said. Gave them some support from over here. And this is the kind of range you ideally want to be shooting at with this thing. Oh, T25/2. Oh, we're going to have you, pal. Because there isn't much that moves fast enough to get out of your gun arc. And you do have a pretty fast reload with the 90mm gun. It's when people get closer than this that you can start getting yourself into trouble. But you can still make it work, even at close range, as we're going to see later on. Now that looks like a Jagdpanther. Yep, that's a Jagdpanther. I can hit him, so have some. T-34 finishes him off. Now, look at the map. We've run into some serious problems in that valley. We've got one tank destroyer holding those guys up. Well, two. And they're both yelling for help. Two heavies. It's T-34 and a KV-5 and an enemy Jagdpanther coming down up the valley. So, I turn around and I go back to help out. T-28 prototype on the road ahead of me does absolutely nothing. In fact, that guy pissed me off. You'll see why later. So even the Hummel's getting stuck in on the defence here. He's going to tank destroyer. We've just lost the Ferdinand who was guarding the back door. We're about to lose that Hummel, and that Jagdpanther, he's in the valley there. He is completely screwed. There, we've just lost him. The Hummel's about to die. I'm pretty sure the T-34 nails him. Yeah, there you go. And that is just me. Me against T-34, KV-5, and a Jagdpanther. And look at this. Look at the map. That's a T-28 prototype. Can you think of anywhere better for that guy to be than down here with me? But no. Fire. I believe I hit, penetrated and damaged, but not enough. He gets one into me, but it bounces, does no damage, and here comes the Jagdpanther. Also conscious of the fact that they have a Hummel, and I don't know where he is, and he's probably going to be lobbing shells down into this valley. Now, here comes the Jagdpanther. Tier 7 TD versus Tier 7 TD. Come on, pal. He's going to be vulnerable when he comes around the corner, and I need to take advantage of that. I'm telling him, cap fast. Right, I'll hold them off as long as I can. And that T-28 prototype is actually heading towards the enemy base. He's leaving me alone here. Bam! And I believe I've set him on fire. And I turn when I reload. Yeah, he's on fire. Bounce his shot. Angle just as he fires. Bingo. So, 2 Tier 8 heavy tanks left. And here comes the first one, and it's the KV-5. And he puts one into me, and I do take a little bit of damage there. Is he firing high explosive? I took a very, very small amount of damage. I'm not sure. Not enough to worry about. And I'm trying to reposition here. Oh no! Crap. And that I did not expect. I saw the KV-5 backing off, and I did not realise how close the T-34 was, so he put a good hit into me. Move up. Fire. Trying to aim with his commander's hatch. Fire. It either misses or bounces. He fires and bounces off me. And I know I'm not going to beat this guy, but I can hold him off. I'm going to go for his tracks. As soon as he comes around the wreck of this Hummel, I'm going to take his tracks out. And there you go. And unfortunately, as I try to reposition, he uses a repair kit and takes me out. And here we go. The T-28 prototype is yelling, "Kill all." If you were that desperate for kills, where the fuck were you when I was getting covered, when I was getting my ass handed to me by 2 heavy tanks and a tank destroyer? I could have used your help if you were that desperate for kills, but no. Don't cap, kill all, he shouts. Well, luckily, the heavy tank that's sitting in the cap circle over there is not an idiot, and he just ignores him. And that ended up being a win, which was nice. So it's only fair to show you how I do in this thing with the 100mm gun, just to illustrate why I prefer the 90mm gun on this machine, despite the fact that technically the 100mm is an upgrade and is the best gun on the tank. And it's all down to the narrow firing arc. It's not good. You can only turn that gun through an arc of something like 30 degrees at the front before you have to start turning the hull. And then it's 2.9 second aiming time again. So while the gun is definitely more powerful, and it does have more penetration, 232mm, the 90mm has enough penetration, 212. And you can just get those shots off so much faster. Broadside KV-3, yes please. Somebody else kills him. And and I would have gotten 2 hits into that guy if I'd been using the 90mm. And that's more damage, and it's more XP, and it's more credits. The length of time you sit waiting with a 100mm to reload, it just keeps robbing you of the next shot. The 100mm is not a bad gun to use on this tank, but it's like using the 90mm on the V39, and it doesn't help you when your entire team decide that right in front of you is the place they're going to park. Come on, show yourselves. Our platoon mate down there in his Tiger P going forward to light them up. There's another Tiger P. Come on, reload. Thank you. I'm waiting for the reload. Come on. There we go, got a kill. So 2 good shots into that Tiger P, but then Dan's taken a pummeling. He's been spotted. He's taken another hit. He's taken his tracks off. I think that was a KV-2 shooting at him, actually. because I take a big old hit from the KV2 very soon as well. And aim, and fire. T29. Bam, there you go, there's a big hit. Dan's dead. KV2's just killed him. KV2's now about to switch fire to me. And there you go, KV2, firing his derp ammo. I killed the T29, but I've lost my commander, I've lost almost all my bloody health. Time to get out of here. And the 100mm, it's not a bad gun, but I don't think it's the best gun on this machine. And you're going to see here where the crappy aiming time and the long traverse. There you go. If I'd had the 90mm, it would have aimed fast enough for me to probably get the killing blow on that fella. But the 100mm, just too slow. And now I'm at the limit of my gun traverse, and then I have to turn in order to hit this M6. And I missed that shot. And then before I can reload, oh, he's I have to turn the bloody tank again because he's at the limit of my gun arc. And this isn't a close range fire or anything, this guy's 350 meters away. And this is why tank destroyers with narrow firing arcs and long aiming times just do not mix. Managed to nail this M6. Actually, no, he wasn't 350 meters away, he was 415 meters away. And an M6 can actually, if you don't hit him and blow his tracks off with your first shot at that range, he just beats your firing arc. At 400 meters, he's actually capable of moving far enough to force you to turn your hull in order to point your gun at him again, and then you're going to go through the whole 2.9 second aiming cycle again. It's just horrible. And this is why the 100mm is not a bad gun, but it's just not the right gun to use on this tank destroyer. The 90mm. The amount of times where if I'd been using the 90mm instead of this, I would have A, been able to get a shot off, or B, been able to get 2 shots off and killed somebody before they got away and into cover. Killed the KV1S, it's my 4th kill. Only got 2 left, T25/2 in a Hummel. And this aiming time is going to get me in trouble. And I'm probably being a bit too aggressive here. Desperate for the kill, charging around the corner into this T25/2, and I fire. And I don't wait for it to aim, and I miss. And if I had just not fired, get one into him, he fires, he bounces, and I get too cocky. And I come around the corner, and he doesn't miss with his second shot. Saw his gun going up there, and he aimed for the rangefinder, and that's where he's going to penetrate. So it wasn't a bad result. It was over 1000 XP for this game, but it just illustrated why I prefer using the 90mm gun on this tank destroyer. Because when you get a tank destroyer that has a narrow gun traverse and you couple that with a very long aiming time, it's just a recipe for disaster and frustration. Oh, the Hummel's just engaged his cloaking device. Even though, you know, he's just fired and he's 70 meters away from these 2 heavies. He goes invisible. And the KV3 finishes him off. And so that was a win. And it wasn't a bad game, but I feel that if I'd been using the 90mm, it would have been a better game. 1000 XP, 32,000 credits. Yeah, it was alright. Killed an M6, a Tiger P, T29, KV1S. Damaged the T25/2 and the KV3. Took 4 hits and died. 13 shots fired, 10 hit the target. And you're going to find that happens when you're using the 100mm, because it has such a long aiming time and a narrow traverse. You end up having to squeeze that shot off to try to get your shot away before somebody makes it out of your firing arc, and so you just miss more, even though the gun has the same accuracy as the 90mm. So screw the 100mm gun. The 90mm gun is the way to go. And if further proof were required, here's the last game that I've played so far on the 46. It's a tier 8 game on Wide Park, the Munich based map. So tier 7 tank destroyer with the 90mm gun, in a Tier 8 game. And it's not that much of a Tier 8 game, actually. There's only one Tier 8 on each side. We've got a Type 59, they've got a T-34. Loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of Tier 7s, and a couple of unlucky Tier 6s sitting there at the bottom of the pile. Not my favourite map, but it's not bad. I much prefer playing... If I was in a tank destroyer, I'd rather be on the other side of the map. I much prefer playing this in big heavies and fast mediums. But you know, you can only play with the hand you've been dealt. So let's just do the best we can. Okay, we've got a Sherman Jumbo, feeling very brave, and heading up to square off against all the enemy heavies. Oh, there's a T-29. He's fired, he's missed. Not sure he can see me. Probably shooting at the Jumbo. And the Jumbo actually hits him. So well played. Doesn't seem to have done much damage. Might have been firing HE. 76mm HE is just bad. Well, I'm not actually sure. Maybe he's got the derp gun. Hard to tell. Conscious of the fact that there's nobody covering the railway embankment up there, and if any of those Americans with a good gun depression get up there, we're in all sorts of trouble down here. But I don't want to go sticking my nose out. And these friendlies on this corner just can't seem to get out of each other's way. Alright, the Jumbo's heading off, and it does look like he does actually have the howitzer. So this Churchill is doing nothing useful, and bang. This poor guy in the Panther, just... It looks like he's... oh, he does have the L100, I think. It might be the L70, 75mm, whatever. He's got it stuck around the other side of that. Can't even return fire. He can't get his gun pointed at me. I'm just taking my time. He's permanently tracked because of where I'm shooting him, and it's going right in his side. This is never going to fail to penetrate. It is never going to miss. Somebody else finishes him off. And that guy stood. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. And I think that's a KV-2 down there. Actually, you know what? Let's be professional about this. I'll just pause it. Go into... By the way, people are often asking, how do you get those health bars above the enemy tanks? What mod is that? It's not a mod. It's here. You go into settings, click the marker tab, and you want to show health indicator. And I go for hit points left and total, and that's it. So there's a little tip there. A very common question that keeps popping up time and time and time again. That's how you do it. And now you can actually see what tanks I'm facing off against. Oh, we took a bounce there, just as we turned and backed off, so haha, sucks to be you. And it is a KV-2 down the other end of the road. Now, KV-2, he's either got the 107mm gun or he's got the derp gun, and I'm not too worried if he's got the 107mm, but if he's got the derp gun, just raw HE splash can cause me all kinds of problems. So I'm not too keen on giving him shots at me that I don't have to. However, those guys on the other side are running away. They've been forced to back off. That T-29's looking like an easy kill at this point. There's the KV-2 again, and he fires and he bounces, probably using 107mm. And there you go. Tracks off, sideways on, take your time. Yeah, he's using 107mm. 327 metres, unless he gets really lucky and hits a viewfinder, he's never going to kill me. Come on. Oh, just couldn't quite reload in time. But he's still exposed, and... Mark 7 Churchill finishes him off. Okay, time to go around the corner and ninja a kill on this T-29. And it's just so much faster aiming. And that's why I prefer this gun. And 212mm of penetration is more than good enough for any fight this thing's going to get into. Hello, Mr. KV-1S. Aha, where do you think you're going, pal? Come here. If I'd been using the 100mm, I wouldn't have been able to aim in time and would probably have missed that guy before he got away. And that's just... it gives you so many more options. Using the 90mm. Penetration's almost as good. Easily good enough. And it just aims faster. And as I keep saying over and over and over again, a tank destroyer with slow aiming time and very, very narrow gun traverse is a recipe for disaster. and that's why I prefer the 90mm gun. Come on, you. And finish him off. Thank you. It was a decent game for this Sherman jumper. Tier 6 medium in a Tier 8 game. Yeah, he did well. And it's just mopping up time now. Where's that T-34? Yeah, I'm sitting in the middle of an open road. Don't really care. I have the frontal armour. And every time this guy comes out, he's got 3 different tanks shooting at him. And you've got the aiming time with his gun, even though I missed that one. Totally donked the shot. And he bounced. And you've got the aiming time with this gun, that when they do duck in and out of cover like that, you can hit them. And there you go. I've had that many kills ninja'd in this game, it was just silly. But yeah, kill stealing. People actually care about that? Seriously? It doesn't matter who kills the tanks, as long as the tanks get killed. What matters is the damage that you do. So that's not bad at all. In fact, that's a very good result. First class mastery badge, so that's clearly the best game I've ever played in the 46, and it wasn't that good. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't great. You know, people will not be telling tales of this battle around the fireside years from now. It was a decent match. Did a load of damage, even got some spotting damage in there. Not a lot, but every little helps. And look at all the hits. Just look at that. Team score. Tier 8 game, Tier 7 tank destroyer, not using the top gun, most XP. How do we do? 18 fired, 15 hits, 14 penetrations, took 4 hits, bounced them all. You'll never see that happening in the ARL V39 at Tier 6. And did 2,700 damage to the enemy team, so yeah, can't really argue with that result. So the AMX AC Mle.1946. It's a good machine. It's not a great machine, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, after driving that ARL V39 and suffering through that utter pile of garbage that is the French Tier 6 tank destroyer, when you finally unlock this thing, it's like a breath of fresh air. You're going from one of the biggest turds in the game to something that is actually a capable machine. It's going to feel legendary driving this thing after having been forced to drive the V39, because it is just so bad. And you'll note that I do not use the top gun on this thing. The French tank destroyers, the biggest problem with the V39 was the fact that to get a decent gun on it, you had to sit through an almost 3-second aiming time. And this problem doesn't go away. Nor the French tank destroyers are very, very good gun traverse. Even on this thing, the gun traverse is fairly narrow. And this was the problem with using the 90mm gun on the V39, because that gun on the V39 has a 2.9 second aiming time. It's nearly 3 seconds. Forget it. Tank destroyers with narrow gun traverse and a long aiming time are a bloody nightmare. And if you use this 100mm gun, there you go, 2.9 second aiming time. And I just can't make that work. I mean, I have had some success using the 100mm gun, but I have much more success using the next one down, the 90mm. And I'm kind of, so far, finding that on this thing, the 48, that 100mm gun, it's the same deal. It's a 2.3 second aiming time on the 48, whereas it's a 2.9 second aiming time on the 47. The 46. I have not yet unlocked the 120mm gun on this thing. We shall have to see. I suspect that, I mean, it's going to be bad again, 2.9 second aiming time, but look at the penetration and look at the damage. And this thing's Tier 8 now, and it's fighting against Tier 10s. You may have to use that gun over the 100mm. We shall have to see. I'll be doing a review of this thing as soon as I've unlocked and played with the 120mm and see how that works. But for the 46, my recommendation is definitely forget the 100mm. Looks like a better gun on paper, but with a narrow gun traverse and that awful 2.9 second aiming time, it's just so frustrating. Stick with the 90mm. It certainly gets the job done, as you know, as you just saw. Can't argue with a result like that. So, the AMX AC Mle.1946. It's a good machine, and it feels like a great machine after you've been driving the ARL V39. French tankers, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Once you get past Tier 6, you start getting some really, really good tank destroyers. Stick with it, it will be worth it. As always, take care on that battlefield, folks, and I'll catch you next time.